Alright, hey guys, She Detector here. So in today's video, it's kind of going to be a little extension from my last video where I was doing reacting to your comments. I had gotten an email, not a comment, but I had gotten an email from somebody that had asked essentially, have I done any metal detecting like off camera? So the answer to that is yes. I did do a little bit of metal detecting actually during my break that I took from metal detecting. I know it sounds weird. So I had joined the Ring Finders, which if you don't know about it or them, it's a website, it's theringfinders.com, where you can go and essentially sign up to be a ring finder, and if somebody happens to lose something and they Google like metal detectorist or I lost something, who can find it, something like that, this website, theringfinders.com, will pull up, and then depending on where the person is, they can look for metal detectorists in their area to locate their lost item. So I had joined theringfinders.com. I think I was on it for like a year or two, not terribly long. And I had gone out to look for a couple of things for a couple of people. I think I went out 3 times, if I remember correctly. And I had all of my recording gear and I recorded all of my hunts, but I didn't ever find anything. So I figured I would tell you guys a little bit about those hunts. So I believe the first one I had gone out to, it was a person in Tampa that they went to a party at a friend's apartment complex, and they were like, it was a pretty big complex, and they had like a bunch of like ponds, and one of them, the main pond, was in like the middle of the courtyard or whatever, and it had like a fountain, and it was there was a kind of like a dock that went out from the clubhouse, and this guy was out there. I think it was nighttime, they had been drinking, and one of the other people that were at the party, I guess, started a fight or something like that. So somebody had grabbed onto, he was wearing a necklace with like a pendant on it, and this person had grabbed it and ripped it off during the fight, and then he threw it into the pond. So this guy reached out to me asking if I could come find it, and you know, I said, you know, I can't promise you, but I'll come out and look, I'll at least try. So I went out and he showed me a picture of the necklace, of the pendant, and it was sentimental. So I believe it was a gift from his father, and it was gold, and I don't remember the pendant that was on it. I believe it was some kind of saint, but I don't remember which saint. But it was very sentimental. And so this pond, it had grass all along the bottom of it. And we're in Florida, so just about every pond in Florida has a gator in it, or a snake, or something kind of terrifying that would potentially get you if you're not paying attention. So my first concern was gators. Luckily I didn't see any gators either on the banks or in the pond. I didn't really see any drag belly marks of gators sunning on the banks of this particular pond, and there was a fountain in it. So it was a pretty active pond, a lot of movement. So I went out with my wetsuit and my metal detector. I took my Garrett Sea Hunter Mark II, so I had my PI machine out there with me. I went into the pond, and the grass was not just like regular sea grass necessarily. This grass was like 3.5 feet tall or long, so it was very, very long. And when I went out into the pond, to about the area where he said that he thinks the necklace was thrown into, I mean, I couldn't touch anymore. So I couldn't touch the ground anymore, but the grass was still up to like my thighs. So it was very, very long, tall grass. I didn't take a tank out with me, but I did have my snorkel gear because I hadn't anticipated the pond being that deep. So I went out, I looked for, I don't know, 45 minutes maybe, getting tangled up in the grass. I couldn't even see the bottom through the grass. Even moving it with my metal detector, I couldn't see the bottom. So, you know, I tried searching and I wasn't able to find the necklace, unfortunately. So that was my first failed hunt with theringfinders.com. My second hunt, I was called by somebody up in like the Weeki Wachee area, And it was, I guess, a guy and his family. They were in town for vacation, so they rented a house right on the Weeki Wachee River. And this house had like a boat house, and there was like, I don't know, kayaks or canoes or whatever. But I guess these people were climbing on top of the boathouse and jumping off of the roof into the river, into the water. So the neighbors were none too pleased about that, because when we rolled up and we parked on the street, the one neighbor came out and at first he was kind of upset for where we were parking, so we backed up a little bit, but then he kind of told us the story about these people jumping off the roof, and they were making a big old ruckus, and they were just unhappy with the loudness of this particular group of people. So I was like, hey, I'm just here to look for a lost ring. And he was like, okay, no problem, whatever. So I go out. Now this one, I did take my dive tank. I took all of my dive gear with me. And it was Weeki Wachee, so it's very clear water. It's a natural spring, so the water was very, very clear and 72 degrees, so obviously I have my wetsuit. And so I go out, and he told me, you know, I jumped off into the water and my ring slipped off my finger. And I'm like, okay, got it, you know. Again, can't promise I'll find it, but I'll look. So I get in the water and I'm looking, and there was a little bit layer of not really grass, but kind of like algae type looking stuff on the bottom. While that wasn't really an issue, the current going through this particular spot of the river was surprisingly strong. Now, the current was going out when I was looking for the ring, so the current was on its way out into the Gulf. It was very, very strong, so much so that I had to keep pumping my legs to stay in one spot, versus like if you're diving, you can kind of go and not really have to move a whole lot necessarily to stay in one spot. I was having to pump my legs with my fins on to stay in one spot. So it was a very strong current. I don't know what the current was when he jumped off and when the ring fell off, but I searched a pretty decent size area, close to the dock, away from the dock, north of the dock, south of the dock, to try and cover everywhere where this ring might have fallen. And again, I could not find it. My only thought is perhaps the current might have, before the ring hit the ground, it might have moved it significantly farther away from the dock than what he thinks it could have gone. Because even when I started traveling a little farther out underwater, I would come up to get my bearings, and he was like, you're too far, you're too far. And I was like, okay. So I'm thinking the ring traveled a good distance before it came down and landed. Unfortunately, I was not able to find that one, so that was my second failed recovery for theringfinders.com. So my third and last recovery, or attempted recovery, was I was contacted by a gentleman who, him and his wife went out on a sunset cruise here in Tampa. It was down south of Fort DeSoto is where the cruise went out of, and then it like goes out into the Gulf and they do the sunset thing and then they come back in. So they were on this sunset cruise, and I guess his wife was leaning over the railing taking a picture, and she dropped her phone. So her phone went into the water and it was gone. And so the captain of the boat luckily did like coordinates for where they were when the phone fell into the water. And so they gave that to the husband. So the husband reached out to me and told me, hey, it's a brand new iPhone. I don't remember what iPhone it was, but it was brand spanking new. And she dropped it, and he wanted to see if I could come out and recover it for them. So I said, yep, sure. You know, again, can't promise I'll find it, but I'll look. So now this one, because they were on a sunset cruise, we had to take the boat out to go find this location so I could find the phone. So we took the boat out. I had Ringer with me, so I took my Excalibur 2, and I had my dive gear, because in this particular area, the captain had said it's about 20-25 feet deep. So obviously I need my dive gear. So I took all of my gear out, we go out to the spot, I send him a picture for where we are on the boat compared to land. And he said, yep, that looks like the right spot, and we were right at the coordinates that he sent us. So I said, okay, great. So we dropped the anchor, and I had the idea of taking a cinder block with a rope wrapped around it. My thought process be, we would lower the cinder block down, I would follow the rope down to the bottom, and when I got to the bottom, I would grab the end of the rope and start doing a spiral search grid using the cinder block as my anchor point, and I would hold on to one end of the rope, and as I swam around in circles, the rope would extend from the cinder block, and then once I got to the end, then I could always go back to the cinder block, move it a couple of feet in one direction or whatever, and then spiral back in, something like that, just so I wouldn't lose my bearings and I wouldn't be double checking or crossing over stuff that I already searched. We dropped the cinder block in, and as it's going down, the current grabs onto the cinder block and is sweeping it away. So we're still lowering it down, but we're looking at the rope. We're holding the rope straight, but the cinder block is in the water, and it's like the rope goes from this to this, and it's with a cinder block on it. And I'm not talking about just like, I don't know, a little paver brick. No, like a legit cinder block you get from the hardware store used to build houses. This thing is getting swept away by the current. So we lower it all the way down. It gets all the way down to the bottom, and we assume. And so I'm like, okay, great. So I get geared up, jump off the back of the boat, and I'm hanging on to the rope that the cinder block is attached to on the bottom. So I'm not even underwater yet, and already the water is pushing me away. Like, I can't let go of the rope because it starts pushing me away. So I'm like, okay, well, great. Well, maybe the current dies down when I get to the bottom, right? So I go down, I follow the rope all the way down, and I get to the bottom, and that current does not let up, not even a little bit. So I'm on the bottom, I'm watching like seashells get chucked by me on the bottom underneath the water because of how strong this current is. And I'm like, oh man, okay. So I get the rope on the cinder block and I start trying to do my spiral, right? So I'm going this way up, and I come around, and as soon as I get going this way, which is the direction the current, it was like pushing opposite direction, I'm swimming and swimming and swimming and swimming and swimming, and I'm not moving anywhere. Like, I can't get back around to continue my first loop of my cinder block because of how strong the current is. Like, I'm having to grab onto the bottom with both hands and like claw my way around to try and get back around the other side of the cinder block. So I'm down there for maybe 10 minutes, maybe. And I'm like, okay, I'm fighting the current. I can barely hang on to the rope that the cinder block is tied to, and I'm struggling with my metal detector because of the current, and I'm like, all right, you know what? If the phone is still down here, it is nowhere near where I currently am because of how strong that current was. I mean, it was legit throwing seashells by me. So I'm like, okay, if this phone, there's no way this phone is still in this particular area. It's gotten flushed out to the Gulf, who knows where. So I come back up and I call the guy and I'm like, hey, look, the current here is wicked strong. Like, that phone is long gone. And you know, he's sad and defeated, but like, obviously he understands, like, I can't control it. He had no idea, I had no idea. So that was my third unsuccessful recovery for the ringfinders.com. So again, I recorded all of my videos for these searches, but I found nothing on any of them. And actually the last one, my phone search, I had my GoPro, and I normally have it in a waterproof or water protective case, but on this one, it was one of my new GoPros. They're great, they're fine out of the case to like a depth of, I don't know, 50 feet, something like that. So I didn't need the case. So I went down there, but I think something with the water, it did something to the GoPro where as soon as I went underwater, the footage sped up. It was like 2 times the speed of a normal like video, if that makes sense. So all of the footage I had of my dive looking for the phone was sped up in double speed. So like you just see it like whipping around and you see just like stuff, I don't know, it was weird. I don't know what happened, why it did that, but that footage was just like complete. I mean, you could still see it, but it was going super fast. So yeah, so I was like, there's no way I'm gonna put a video together of these things where I literally found like nothing, not even garbage. So yeah, so those are my hunts. Those are the hunts that I did off camera for the ringfinders.com. Again, somebody had asked about it, and I never planned on putting this footage out there because it was like, why? Yeah, so those were the hunts. That answers that person's question that they had in the email. So that's pretty much it for today's video. Hopefully I answered your questions sufficiently and thoroughly. If anybody else has any more questions for me or anything you want to see outside of just regular metal detecting videos, go ahead and let me know in the comments down below. I do like answering y'all's questions. Hopefully you liked today's video. If you did, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber to my YouTube channel yet, please make sure you do so by hitting the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys later.